In this playthrough of Pokemon Platinum, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Nuzlocke if I made the run ridiculously hard. My hardcore Nuzlocke rules are as follows. I can only catch the first Pokemon on every route, I cannot use items during battle, I have to play on set mode, I can't over-level past the next gym leader's ace, and if a Pokemon faints, it must be permanently boxed. I've been doing Pokemon Nuzlockes casually for longer than I can remember at this point, and I decided it was time to really push myself and try and do a run that would really challenge me. Because of this, I decided to add the following rules. I cannot use held items, I cannot use TMs, my level cap will be reduced by 5, and whenever I'm battling a gym leader, I must use the same amount of Pokemon as that gym leader. Any combination of these rules would make any hardcore Nuzlocke difficult, but with all of them combined, it's going to make this a real test. So with the rules out the way, let's jump right into this run. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, it really helps me out and lets me know you guys are enjoying. First up is starter choice, and considering the early game is going to be where a lot of the difficulty is, the starter choice is going to have a huge impact. I think in Generation 4 all the starter choices are viable. Turtwig gets access to early stab Earthquake, Piplup becomes a steel type and steel type is still broken before Generation 6, and Chimchar is overall the best starter line in this game. For this first attempt I decide on Piplup, just because I feel like she'll be the most useful throughout the game, as well as being useful against the first gym, unlike Chimchar, so Asylum joins the team. After beating up our rival and running back and forth between Twinleaf Town and Sand Gym Town, we're ready to start collecting encounters. We actually get a decent amount of encounters before the first gym, so we can start filling out our team nice and early. First of all, we catch a Starly at Lake Verity. Starly is great, and once she evolves, she'll gain access to Intimidate, meaning she'll be a vital member of our team. Welcome to the team, Belle. After Dawn shows us how to catch a Pokemon, a bit late on that one, Dawn, we're able to catch our second encounter, a Bidoof we name Moonlight. While Moonlight isn't exactly what I'd call a useful encounter, at least she's kinda cute, so that's something. North of Jubilife we catch something that isn't useful or cute, Cricketop, who we name Taurus. At least she makes a funny noise when she evolves. While we can't go through Ravaged Path yet, we can still get an encounter here, and either Geodude or Zubat would be great here, and of course I get a Psyduck. And while I love Psyduck, he is my channel mascot after all. He isn't exactly what I'd call useful. Oh well, Pinwheel is here for moral support I suppose. After a fairly easy rival fight, we head east of Jubilife City for our next encounter, a Shinx. Now Shinx is a bit meh, all things considered, but luckily this one has Intimidate, meaning he does have some uses. Thanks to not being completely useless, Capra. In Orberg Gate we find a Zubat, which I'd usually be happy about, but I really would like a Geodude for this upcoming first gym, and I'm running out of chances to get one at this point. Crossbreed won't be useful until my level cap is high enough to turn her into a Crobat, but once that happens she'll be amazing. Just a couple gym badges between here and that point unfortunately. North of Orberg we catch a Ponyta we name Ceaseless, who unfortunately is still not Geodude. I've never really used a Ponyta in a run before, always running it off, so I'm interested to see how one of the only fire types I'm going to get in this run actually performs. Our last encounter before the next gym is in Orberg Mine, and my entire plan for dealing with the first gym relied on getting Geodude, so I'm really hoping I don't get an Onix here. Oh thank god. Luckily we catch Geodude, who we name Stray. And with that we're ready for the first gym. Now with a 5 level difference and a limit of 3 Pokemon, I don't have a huge amount of options for this fight. I decide my best bet is setting up defense curls with Stray and then going through Rock Smash and hoping I don't get crit. So we start the fight with Stray while Rourke starts off with his own Geodude. I'm able to get off 6 defense curls without taking too much damage, and then I'm able to slowly whittle down Geodude with Rock Smashes without dropping below half health. Good start. Taking out the Geodude also gives me 2 level ups, meaning this should only get easier from here. Rourke then sends out his ace Cranidos, and a random crit or 2 here could be in game over. Luckily, our first 2 Rock Smashes lower Cranidos' defense, meaning when Rourke heals with a potion, a 3rd Rock Smash is enough for the KO. Last is Onix, who gets off a couple weak Rock Throws before going down to a barrage of Rock Smashes. First gym done. We managed to pull that off without any issues, thanks to not being crit, just need that luck to last the next 7 gym fights and we should be golden. My level cap is now 17, meaning I can evolve Belle into Staravia and Capra into Luxio. This is kinda close to the level cap, but it's worth the risk of the leveling thanks to now having 2 Intimidate users, meaning if I pivot between them I can shut down a lot of physical threats. We then backtrack through Jubilife City, and on the way we get to watch Rowan absolutely destroy a pair of Team Galactic members, which is always a laugh. You can also grab the most important item in this playthrough while backtracking, the memo pad, just so you don't forget. Anyway, after watching Rowan verbally incinerate some idiots, we can catch our next encounter, a Shellos outside Valley Windworks. Now if I waited till Friday I could catch a Drifloon, which probably would have been better, but I kinda didn't, so Gaping joins the team. I also decided it's worth bringing Asylum very close to the level cap so he can evolve, because even if he over levels I'm not going to be using him against the Grass Gym Leader anyway. So Asylum evolves into Prinplup. Before we can carry on though, we have to deal with our first Team Galactic admin, Mars. Now Mars can be kind of scary because her power ugly is really tough at this point in the game. Luckily though, with 2 Intimidate users it shouldn't be an issue. We start off with Asylum, who after a combination of Pex, Metal Claws and Bubbles is able to very slowly take out Mars's Zubat. Then the power ugly comes out, so we start Operation Intimidate switch. This involves rotating between Capra and Bell until the Fat Cat is at -6 and then rock smashing it to death with Geodude. I just have to worry about crits. Luckily it doesn't crit even once, meaning I'm able to bring the power ugly down to -6 and then finish it off with a few rock smashes from Geodude. That went well. I'm really surprised we haven't had a single death yet. We've just got to get through Eternia Forest and we're already at the second gym. Maybe this run isn't as hard as I thought. Oh. So I know that these 2 trainers had Abras with hidden power, but I didn't realise it was hidden power fighting, and they would one-shot poor Moonlight. Losing Moonlight isn't the end of the world, but losing her to such a needless death is very annoying. Stupid Abra. Oh well, rip Moonlight, I hope your death doesn't start a trend. Luckily we do catch 2 fairly good encounters in exchange for the Moonlight, and we name Dark Sun in Eternia Forest, and a Bronzong we name Golem on Route 211. With that we're ready for Gym 2, and this fight is the stupidest fight I think I've ever had in a Nuzlocke run so far. I decide on a team of Golem, Bell and Ceaseless, and I know I'm going to need a bit of luck here because Roserade would be kind of scary. So we start with Bell, while Gardenia starts with Turtwig. Bell gets off a really strong wing attack that leaves Turtwig just below half before Turtwig gets up a Reflect. Reflect is going to be really annoying because it means another wing attack won't get the KO. Luckily though, Bell gets a crit, meaning I take down Gardenia's first Pokemon with no damage. Second is Cherrim, and Bell decides she doesn't want to play around today and gets a second crit. Are you actually kidding? I need to go buy a lottery ticket. Unfortunately, Cherrim survives with a tiny amount of HP, meaning she is able to get off a strong Magical Leaf. I then go through a second wing attack after Gardenia heals, which does do a lot of damage thanks to Reflect. I then get off a third wing attack while being brought to below half by a second Magical Leaf. But luckily, Reflect ends. This means that on the next turn, I can bring down Cherrim with a fourth wing attack. Last is Roserade. I immediately switch into Golem and get crit by a Magical Leaf. I really can't complain after my luck at the start of this fight, but still, that really hurt. I then dodge a Stun Spore while also missing a Hypnosis. Roserade and Golem clearly trying to psych each other out with misses here. On the next turn, we both miss again. This is getting a bit silly. Unfortunately though, on the third turn, Roserade lands the Stun Spore and we get paralyzed, meaning I'm still not able to put Roserade to sleep. Roserade then lands a really strong Grass Knot, and if I don't land a Hypnosis this turn, I could be in real trouble. Luckily, it lands. This means I just have to hope Roserade stays asleep for at least a few turns. She stays asleep as Ceaseless comes in, and then stays asleep on the next turn as Ceaseless gets off a strong Flame Wheel. Flame Wheel does enough here where even if Roserade wakes up on the next turn, I should be guaranteed a win. Luckily, that doesn't even matter because she doesn't, meaning a second Flame Wheel is enough to bring Roserade into the red, and then on the next turn, a third Flame Wheel is able to KO. That was the stupidest and luckiest gym fight I've ever done. I decide at this point to backtrack and grab an encounter I could have caught earlier, a Magikarp I named Grey Wolf, and our level cap is 21, so I can immediately evolve Grey Wolf into Gyarados. I don't usually use Gyarados because they are so broken, but in a run like this I feel like it's their game. Before we can carry on to the third gym, we have our second team Galactic admin fight, Jupiter. I plan to use the same plan I used against Mars to lower Stunktank's attack to -6 and then KO with Geodude Magnitudes. This is slightly more risky this time around because Stunktank has Night Slash, which has a high chance to crit, but I'm not expecting too much of an issue here because I now have 3 Intimidate users, lowering the amount of times they will have to switch in and risk a crit. I start with Capra and Jupiter starts off with Zubat. I immediately outspeed and one-hit KO with the Spark. Now to deal with the Stunktank. I switch into Bell to start lowering Stunktank's attack with Intimidate, and she immediately crits, taking down Bell. Good start, rest in peace Bell. I'll add you to the long list of Staravias I've used that get KO'd before I'm able to get them to evolve into Staraptor. This is still very winnable, I've still got 2 other Intimidate users. Everything is going well, I managed to get it down to -6 with no issues, and of course it manages to get a second crit, KOing Capra. Rest in peace buddy. Luckily Geodude is then able to come in and hit a really hard magnitude, and as long as I high roll on the next one, I should be 3 to get a KO here and win the match. And of course I get a 4, which crits but still does next to nothing, because I rolled a 4. I used up all of my luck in that Gardenia fight clearly. I then miss a third magnitude because my accuracy has been lowered by Smokescreen, before finally landing one on the next turn, which crits, securing us the win. I only lost 2 very valuable mons, which isn't annoying at all. Thanks to rescuing the bite shop owner, however, Cynthia gives us a Togepi egg, which we're immediately able to hatch. Cinder is so happy because he liked this video and subscribed to the channel to see more, that he immediately is able to evolve into Togetic. Dark Sun copies Cinder's example and is able to evolve into Roselia immediately as well. Maybe if you like this video you're evolved from happiness as well? We only get 2 more notable encounters before the next gym. A Ralts we catch from Route 208. How I caught this with one ball without teleporting away, I'll never know. And then in Heart Home City, BB gives us an EV we name Abyss. Now I should probably have waited to evolve Abyss and picked an EV evolution that I needed to fill a slot in my team at a particular moment, but instead I decided to go into Umbreon. Now Umbreon is great, it's incredibly tanky, but his move pool leaves a little bit to be desired because he doesn't actually learn a dark type move until level 36, meaning he's not actually going to be that much help against the next gym, unlike I was hoping. Oops. Because of Abyss's useless move pool, I decided on a team of Ceaseless, who hits hard and fast with neutral fire attacks, Gyarados, who has super effective bite, and Togetic, who has Encore and Yawn for support. I do also EV train my Pokemon at this point, so let's see how this goes. I start with Ceaseless, while Fantina starts with Duskull. Duskull is able to get off 2 Shadow Streaks before going down to 2 Flame Wheels, annoying that Duskull has priority, otherwise I would have been able to win that while taking only 1 attack. Luckily, Shadow Streak doesn't do too much damage, so it's not too much of an issue. Second is Haunter, who immediately lands a Confuse Ray. Ceaseless then hits himself in Confusion, but I decide Ceaseless still has enough HP to where it's worth still trying to get off a Flame Wheel, but unfortunately Haunter then lands a Hypnosis. At this point I decide it's not worth staying in, so I switch into Cinder, who can't be hit by Haunter if I don't go through an attacking move. As I switch in, Haunter goes for a Shadow Claw that does nothing, and then on the next turn, Cinder gets put to sleep. Cinder then stays asleep as he's hit by a Confuse Ray. This would be more of an issue, but again, Haunter only has Sucker Punch as an attacking move that can hit Cinder, so it's not really an issue. So on the next turn, Haunter goes to Sucker Punch, which fails, and somehow Cinder wakes up and breaks through the confusion on the same turn. This is great because I land a Yawn, meaning I have to stall with a couple more switches until the Haunter is asleep, and then I can get off a KO with Grey Wolf with just 2 bites. Easy. Last is Mismagius, which would be scary, but I'm confident I can KO fairly easily with Grey Wolf once it's been put to sleep by Cinder. So I switch into Cinder and get hit with a Confuse Ray before tanking a Psybeam on the next turn while hitting myself in confusion. Eventually though, Yawn connects and I switch into Grey Wolf as Mismagius falls asleep after taking 1 more Psybeam. Mismagius then goes down to 2 more bites while staying asleep. Easy 3rd gym badge. Needed something a bit more straightforward after the mess that was the 2nd gym. Thanks to our new level cap of 27, we're able to evolve 2 of our Pokemon. Crossbreed is able to finally evolve into the always useful Crobat, and Stray gets an extra pair of arms and is able to evolve into Graveler. We do get a fair few new encounters before Hearthome and Veilstone, but only 2 of them we actually end up using. A Cypher we name Centipede, and a Hippopotas we catch in Relic Tunnel who we name Guardian. With that, we're ready for the 4th gym leader, Maylene. We're getting to the point where we have enough decent encounters where these gyms are becoming slightly easier, so let's see how this goes. I start off with our newly acquired Centipede, and Maylene starts off with Meditite. Meditite starts off with Fake Out, which crits of course, and it does a lot more damage than I'm actually hoping to take at this point. Bad start. Luckily on the next turn, Centipede is able to cleanly one-shot with a wing attack. Next is Machoke, who knows the 4 times affected Rock Tomb, meaning I have to switch out here. I go into Golem, who luckily avoids the Rock Tomb on the switch. I then get hit by a decently hard Karate Chop before putting the Machoke to sleep with a Hypnosis. I'm then safe to max out my defense with 3 Iron defenses as Machoke stays asleep. I then go through a Confuse Ray on the turn Machoke wakes up while taking a very weak Karate Chop. I then start going for Extrasensory as Machoke gets off of Focus Energy. That could be bad. Annoyingly, Extrasensory only does about a third. On the next turn I get hit by a Karate Chop that luckily doesn't crit. The second Extrasensory brings Machoke into range of the KO. Of course then, right before Machoke goes down, he gets a crit, bringing me dangerously low as the third Extrasensory takes the knockout. Last is Lucario, and I was hoping to have slightly more HP at this point, but hey ho, can't have everything. I get hit with a Drain Punch that does next to nothing thanks to my defense increases, but unfortunately miss a Hypnosis. I then take a second Drain Punch that luckily doesn't crit as we land a Hypnosis. I then take a bit of the risk with Golem's life and decide to get off some more damage before bringing Centipede in. Luckily, Lucario stays asleep and I'm able to get off a large chunk of damage with an Extrasensory. I'm then able to bring Centipede back in as Lucario stays asleep and then get a KO with a single wing attack. Played a bit more risky than I probably needed to, but we managed to get through that deathless. 4th gym done. We only get 1 more notable encounter before the next gym, a Pikachu we named Glass. Considering the next gym is a water type gym, this encounter has very good timing. We're immediately able to evolve Glass into Raichu with the Thunderstone we picked up in Solaceon Ruins. Before we can get to the next gym though, we have a rival fight to deal with, and I really underestimate this fight. We start off with Glass, while our rival Solaire starts off with Staravia. Staravia gets off a really strong quick attack, but then is immediately one-shot with a Thunderbolt. Second is Ponyta, gets off 2 hard stomps before being brought into the red with a single Bubble Beam. On the 3rd turn, I decide to risk a third stomp, and Asylum survives on 1 HP from a crit. That gave me a heart attack. Luckily, a second bubble beam is then able to take down the Ponyta, and then the rest of the fight is fairly straightforward. Crossbreed is able to take down Grotto with 2 flies, and then Weasel is able to go down to a single Giga Drain from Dark Sun. Never underestimate your rival, that was way too close. 5th gym time. Even in a more difficult run like this, if you've got a decent electric type and a decent grass type, Crash or Wake isn't too difficult. Luckily I had both, so I start off with Glass, and Wake starts off with Gyarados. Gyarados is always scary, but luckily Glass outspeeds and gets a one-shot with a Thunderbolt. Next is Quagsire, so I switch into Dark Sun, who tanks a weak Mud Shot and then gets the one-hit KO with the Giga Drain. Last is Closetail, which is threatening with Ice Fang, so I switch into Glass. Glass takes a lot of damage from an Ice Fang on the switch, but is able to outspeed and one-shot with a Thunderbolt on the following turn. Easiest gym fight so far, just goes to show you that the Pokemon Nuzlocke mid-games are usually the easiest parts of the runs. Now, unfortunately, the mid-game being slightly easier than the rest of the run has lured me into a false sense of security, and well, I'll play the live audio of what happens when you start playing sloppy. Wait, doesn't Tangela know Ancient Power? Oh shit. Please KO, please KO, please KO. Oh, that sucks. It's my own fault, but it really sucks to lose such a good Pokemon so stupidly. Rest in peace, Crossbreed. Really can't get careless 5 gym badges in, and this was definitely a reminder of that. Luckily, we don't have any more casualties before we make it to Celestic Town, where we have to face Cyrus for the first time. To be honest, this first fight isn't particularly interesting, so we're just gonna cut it, but Cyrus will definitely become a huge threat later on. After stomping Cyrus, however, we gain access to Surf and Canalave Town. However, now that we have Surf, we can get a few more useful encounters before the next gym. We catch a Tentacool, we name Skeleton, and a Magnemite, we name Sinner. Both of these encounters are easily ARS tier, so I'm very excited to get you to use them. We immediately evolve Sinner into Magneton. With that, it's off to Iron Island, where we catch a Steelix I name L3, and Riley gives us a Pokemon egg that we can immediately hatch and evolve into Lucario. Obviously, Lucario is amazing, so we can add it to the list of amazing encounters Platinum gives us basically for free. Welcome to the team, Royal. And with that, it's time for the 6th gym leader, Byron. Now, while fighting through the gym, I did do a double oopsie. Unfortunately, Pursuer the Quagsire gets taken down by an Ace Trainer who has a Sizzle. And to make it a double whoopsie, I actually didn't record this either, so at least you're spared the footage of my Quagsire being brutally murdered. Anyway, gym time, and like the other mid-game gyms in Pokemon Platinum, this one is fairly straightforward. Byron starts off with Magneton, and I start off with Gaping. Gaping is outspared and hit with a weak tri-attack, before landing a 4 times effective Mud Bomb for the one-shot. Second is Steelix, who gets off a really hard Earthquake before going down in one hit to a Surf. Last is Bastiodon, so I switch into Pinwheel, while Bastion goes to the Iron Defense. On the next turn, Pinwheel goes through a Surf, which misses the one-shot. Really, Pinwheel, you're kind of letting the channel down here. Missing the one shot means Bastion is able to get off a Stone Edge that hits really hard but luckily doesn't crit. This means on the next turn, Pinwheel is able to get off the second Surf, which gets the KO and wins us the 6th gym badge. Before anything else, I do decide to use this shiny stone I find on Iron Island on Dark Sun instead of Cinder, meaning we get ourselves a Roserade. Then before we start the long trek to Snowpoint City, we have a bunch of Team Galactic battles. Here's a quick rundown. Saturn is a stomp, and then Mars is equally a stomp. Easy peasy. Unfortunately though, disaster strikes as I'm making my way towards Snowpoint City. After murdering a Bunnery, a random Ace Trainer sends out a Seeking, and I'm going to be completely honest, I'd never in my life thought of Seeking as anything threatening in any way whatsoever, and to be honest I rarely remember Seeking exists. So you can imagine I'm slightly annoyed at the fact that this stupid overgrown goldfish survives an Aura Sphere from Royal and then hits a waterfall that leaves Royal with 5 HP, meaning Royal goes down to hail damage. To be honest, that's almost as stupid as losing Crobat to Tangela, so fuck you Seeking. I do feel slightly better because outside Snowpoint City I do get 2 great encounters, a Swinub we name Banethor and a Sneasel we name Rotten. Still a little bit salty though, not gonna lie. We do get one last evolution before the 7th gym, as a Metal Coat we find on Iron Island allows us to evolve Centipede into Sizzle. Good timing considering the next gym is the Ice-type leader Candace, and Scissor is really useful here. So I start the fight with Centipede and she starts with Sneasel. Luckily, thanks to a booth tutor, I was able to teach Centipede priority Bullet Punch, meaning Sneasel goes down in one hit. Second is Pillow-Swine, so I switch into Gaping. Annoyingly, Pillow-Swine sets up Hail on the switch and then goes through a really hard Earthquake before going down to a single Surf. Third is Abomasnow, so I switch into Ceaseless, who still hasn't evolved. This means she takes a lot of damage from a Wood Hammer and then Hail Chip. I'm not actually expecting Ceaseless to survive here. I'm planning to let him go down after getting off a Flame Wheel. My little horsey clearly doesn't want to go down, however, because he crits taking down a Abomasnow in one hit. I'm not complaining my horse gets to live, but this does mean taking down Throstlass is now more awkward because I was planning to hit it with a priority Bullet Punch before it could get off any double teams. Luckily, as I switch into Centipede, Throstlass just starts going for Shadow Balls, which Centipede easily tanks. Annoyingly, I then get off a Bullet Punch that just misses the KO, meaning Throstlass is able to get off a double team. I then miss a second Bullet Punch and get hit with a really strong Blizzard, and I decide to go with plan B, so I switch into Abyss, who takes a Shadow Ball like it's nothing. On the next turn, Abyss takes a decent amount of damage from a Blizzard, but luckily survives and lands a Fate attack that can't miss, winning us the 7th gym badge. That fight had a lot of opportunities to go wrong, but luckily we got through it with no deaths. Thanks to surviving the fight, Ceaseless evolves into Rampadash, and we can also evolve Sinner into Magnezone, as he's now learnt Discharge. We can also evolve Stray into Golem, and we can go grab the second shiny stone to evolve Cinder into Togekiss. Next is more Team Galactic stuff, but to be honest it's all fairly easy, so we're going to skip right to the final fight with Cyrus in the Distortion world. We do however pick a Razor Claw in Cyrus's office, meaning we can evolve Rotten into Weavile. Now for the final confrontation with Cyrus, and this fight is always scary. Luckily my team is fairly stacked at this point, so let's see how this goes. Cyrus starts with Houndoom and I start off with Stray. Houndoom immediately lands a Will-O-Wisp, which is annoying but not unexpected. An Earthquake then brings Houndoom to below half HP. On the next turn I go through a second Earthquake, expecting to get the KO, but Cyrus hard switches into Gyarados, meaning Earthquake does nothing. Can someone explain why the AI does this sometimes, because I still don't get why it will hard switch seemingly at random. Because of Cyrus's unexpected switch, I decide my best bet is to go into my own Gyarados to tank a Waterfall and get an Intimidate drop. I then know it's safe to switch into Glass, as Gyarados will never go for Earthquake against my own Gyarados. I do have to risk a Threes however, but luckily Glass doesn't get crit or Frozen, so on the next turn a single Thunderbolt is enough to take down the Gyarados. Up next is Weavile, so I switch into Centipede, who easily tanks an Ice Punch and then is able to land a priority Bullet Punch. Unfortunately Weavile just survives the Bullet Punch, meaning he is able to bring Centipede to just above half his HP with a second Ice Punch, before going down to a second Bullet Punch. Cyrus then brings his Houndoom back out and I switch into Stray. Fortunately Stray takes a lot from a Flamethrower on the switch, and I decide it's probably best to let Stray go down here so I can get Glass in safely. So on the next turn I click Earthquake and Stray goes down to a Dark Pulse. Rest in peace Stray, your sacrifice won't be in vain. Glass immediately proves Stray's sacrifice was worth it because he is able to come in, outspeed and finish off Houndoom with a Thunderbolt. Cyrus then sends in Haunchcrow and Glass is able to one-shot it with another Thunderbolt, meaning Cyrus is down to his last Pokemon, Crobat. Crobat actually still outspeeds despite my speed EVs, meaning he's able to get off a really strong cross poison that gets the poison, leaving Glass with just 14 HP. I'm then expecting to get the KO with the Thunderbolt, so this should be fine. Somehow Crobat survives on basically what looks like 1 HP. This is really bad. The poison is very likely to take me out here, but somehow Glass survives on 1 HP. That was way too close. Luckily Glass survives, so it's just a case of bringing back in Sinner, who is able to tank a few air slashes before getting the one-hit KO with a Discharge after Cyrus heals. Glass came unbelievably close to going down there, but somehow we got through that fight, while only losing Stray. With the Team Galactic arc finished, however, we can go collect our final gym badge. But first we evolve Guardian into Hippowdon and Banethorn into Mamoswine, both of whom should make the final gym a cakewalk. Falconer starts off with Jolteon and I start off with Guardian. Jolteon starts off with a really weak Iron Tail and then goes down to a single Earthquake. Second is Raichu, who gets off an equally weak Focus Blast before going down to a single Earthquake. Third is Electrifier, so I switch into Belthry, the Steelix, who takes a Fire Punch on the switch. Belthry is then hit by a second Fire Punch that does a lot of damage before getting off a Fire Fang, but really doesn't do much. Belthry was a bit pointless here to be honest, so I switch into Gaping, tanks the Fire Punch on the switch. Electrifier then gets off a weak Quick Attack before going down to a single Mud Bomb. Last is Luxray, who gets off a single Crunch before surviving a Mud Bomb. I then switch into Banethorn, who brings down the Luxray with a single Earthquake. Easy 8th gym. It's kind of funny how easy Falconer is considering you have to convince him to battle you, as he's bored with so many weak trainers. Like, who is he battling? Small children? Anyway, that's all 8 gym badges done. Time for Victory Road and the final gym. That's all 8 gyms done, time for Victory Road and the Elite Four. Platinum's Victory Road is fairly tricky, but luckily we get through with no issues right up until the very last trainer, where disaster strikes. I'm rushing because I'm so close to the Elite Four, and I don't think when switching Grey Wolf into a Porygon Z. Of course the Porygon Z survives a Waterfall and then hits back with a Thunderbolt that one-shots Gyarados. Rest in peace Grey Wolf, I'll miss your abilities to sweep the entire Elite Four very shortly. Unfortunately the misplays continue as I use Banethorn to take out the Porygon, and then lead them in against a Tangrowth, because I'm confident Banethorn can one-shot the Tangrowth with an Ice Shard. Unfortunately, I underestimate how bulky this thing is, and it survives, meaning it's able to get off a super effective Power Whip, which takes down Banethorn. I'm starting to hate Tangela a lot here. Rest in peace, Banethorn. This is what I get for rushing. Luckily, I don't have any more issues before reaching the Elite Four and crushing my rival for the final time. I'm gonna need to be playing my best here if I want to beat this Elite Four with only 5 Pokemon, but I'd lie if I'd said losing 2 Pokemon right before the end of Victory Road didn't put me in a sour mood. mode right before this final. Anyway, it takes me a while to construct a team, considering I'm only allowed to bring 5 Pokemon, so let's see who I'm bringing. Rotten the Weavile, Cinder the Togekiss, Skeleton the Tentacruel, Gaping the Gastrodon, and Sinnoh the Magnezone. Let's go win us the championship. I start off with Rotten while Aaron starts off with the Yanmega. I'm immediately able to outspeed and KO with an Ice Punch, good start. Second is Heracross, so I switch into Cinder, who easily tanks a Mega Horn on the switch. I then luckily dodge a Stone Edge, before taking down the Heracross with a single Air Slash. Third is Drapion, so I'm switching into Gaping. As I switch, Gaping takes an Ice Fang, and then on the next turn, Gaping takes an Egg Scissor that leaves Gaping just above half. Gaping then hits a Mud Bomb that just misses the KO. I need to get that red on a shirt at this point. Luckily, on the next turn, Drapion goes for a second Egg Scissor, which doesn't crit, and Gaping lands a second Mud Bomb, bringing Aaron's most threatening Pokemon down. Fourth is Scizor, and Sinnoh completely walls it, so I switch into Sinnoh, who takes an Egg Scissor on the switch, before going through a couple discharges that take the Scizor down. Last is Vespiquen, who can't touch Sinnoh, so I go through a discharge which outspeeds and gets the KO. First member of the Elite Four down. Up next is Bertha, who shouldn't be a problem despite all her Pokemon hitting fairly hard. I start with Gaping while Bertha starts with Whiscash. Whiscash starts with Sandstorm, which benefits me as much as it does Bertha right now because of Gaping's ground typing. I go through a Surf that does just above half even with Sandstorm up. On the next turn, Gaping gets hit with a very weak Earth power before taking down Bertha's first Pokemon with the second Surf. Second is Gliscor, and I risk a crit here which luckily pays off as Gaping survives an Earthquake and then gets off the Surf that gets the one-hit KO. Never punished. Third is Hippowdon, and I know there's an Earthquake coming out here, so I switch into Cinder. Now because Cinder is faster, I can lock Hippowdon into Earthquake on the next turn, meaning I'm completely free to put Hippowdon to sleep with Yawn. This means I can set up a Wish and then safely switch back into Gaping as Hippowdon is asleep and Gaping gets a 3 heal on the switch. Gaping is then able to take down the Hippowdon as it stays asleep with a single Surf. Third is Golem, who gets off a strong Earthquake before going down to a single Surf. Last is Rhyperior, so I decide to stay in to handle it the exact same way I did Hippowdon, Encore into Earthquake, put it to sleep with Yawn, and then set up Wish before switching back into Gaping, who gets healed and gets the one-hit KO with a Surf. Easy. That's why Encore is broken. Second Elite Four member down. Next is Flint, who I'm slightly worried about, which might be surprising considering I've got 2 water types, but Flint has some really good Pokemon and they all have really good coverage, so let's see how this goes. I start with Skeleton while Flint starts with Houndoom. I immediately outspeed and KO with a single crit Surf. Who knew Tentacruel was so speedy? I don't think I needed the crit there, but I'm not going to complain. Second is Flint's very scary Infernape, and I'm unsure if Infernape will go for Thunder Punch or Earthquake here, but I don't want to risk Cinder being hit by a Thunder Punch, so I switch into Gaping, who tanks an Earthquake fairly well. I then go through a Surf as a second Earthquake brings Gaping to just above half health, and then a Surf manages to get the KO on the Infernape. If that hadn't KO'd, I might have been in trouble. Third is Rapidash, who isn't too threatening, as it will always try to set up Solar Beam, meaning Gaping can one-shot with a single Surf before it can get it off. Magmortar is the exact same, he goes for a Solar Beam, meaning I get off a 3 Surf that just misses the KO. I then switch into Cinder, who tanks the Solar Beam with ease. I then go through an Encore, expecting Thunderbolt, but surprisingly Magmortar goes the Hyper Beam that does a decent amount of damage. Because Magmortar has to then recharge on the next turn, I go through a Yawn. I then switch into Skeleton, who tanks the second Hyper Beam and then goes for a Surf, finishes off the Magmortar. Last is Flareon, who hits a really hard quick attack before just surviving a single Surf. Skeleton is kind of low at this point, but I can't risk anyone else on the switch, so I go through a second Surf as Flint heals. Luckily this brings Flareon back into the yellow, and it doesn't go through another quick attack on the following turn, meaning Skeleton can get off another Surf, winning us the match. That could have gotten messy, but so far we've got through this Elite Four Deathless. Let's see if that carries on against Lucian, who is by far the most difficult member of the Elite Four. Lucian starts off with Mr. Mime and I start off with Rotten. I immediately start off with a Night Slash that gets the one-hit KO. Second is Gallade, who is a bit tricky because I'm not sure if it will go for Stone Edge or Drain Punch here. I decide my best bet is hoping it goes to Stone Edge, which does more damage, so I send in Sinnoh. Luckily I'm correct and Sinnoh takes a Stone Edge, which doesn't do a lot of damage. I'm then safe to switch into Cinder, who takes a Drain Punch that does a lot more than I'm hoping. I then have to risk a Stone Edge crit because I need Gallade to be locked into Stone Edge here or I will just probably get swept. Luckily Cinder just barely survives, meaning Gallade is locked into Stone Edge and Sinnoh can safely come back in, tank another Stone Edge, and then start going for discharges. Fortunately though, before my first discharge connects, Sinnoh gets crit, bringing him really low, and discharge does less than half. If nothing else, I get quite lucky because Gallade at least gets paralysed. On the next turn, I outspeed because of the para, and then get a crit for the one-shot. I got so lucky there. Without that crit, I probably would have lost someone there, so that was very lucky. Third is Alakazam, who with some smart switching isn't too scary. I switch into Skeleton, who tanks a Focus Blast, and then I know Alakazam will go for Psychic, because of Skeleton's poison typing, so I can freely switch into Rotten. With Rotten now in, I can outspeed and one-shot with a single Night Slash on the following turn. Fourth is Bronzong, who threatens with Gyro Ball, so I switch into Gaping, who tanks it stupidly well. On the next turn, however, Bronzong gets off a really strong Psychic crit. Luckily, Surf leaves him low enough to where Rotten can come back in on a second Psychic, outspeed and KO with a Night Slash. I do crit here, but it doesn't actually make a difference, I would have got the KO anyway. Lucian's final Pokemon is Espeon, who is outsped and goes down to a single Night Slash. That's the Elite Four done. That was a really messy fight, and I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure I only got through that deathless due to blind luck. But we did it, meaning it's champion time, the bane of my childhood, Cynthia. I still have my full team alive, so this is still very doable, but it's not going to be easy. Cynthia starts off with Spiritomb, and I start off with Sinnoh. Sinnoh is the perfect Pokemon to take down the Spiritomb though, because he resists all of Spiritomb's moves, so I start with a Discharge that does just over half and get the power, and then Spiritomb gets paralysed. What is my luck? This means on the next turn, a second Discharge is able to take down the Spiritomb without Sinnoh taking any damage. Then Cynthia's Terrathine Garchomp comes out, and unfortunately I have to sacrifice one of my team here so Rotten can come in freely and take this monster down. Unfortunately, it falls on Skeleton to take one for the team, so with a heavy heart I switch into Skeleton as Garchomp goes to Earthquake and salute as he goes down. Rest in peace Skeleton, your sacrifice brings us one step closer to winning. I'm then able to get Rotten safely in, who outspeeds and one-shots Cynthia's monster with an Ice Punch. That's Cynthia's scariest Pokemon down, but we're not even close to winning yet. Third is Lucario, and I can't risk Cinder being hit by a Stone Edge here, so I switch into Gaping. Gaping actually manages to dodge the Stone Edge on the switch, luckily, and on the next turn, Gaping is hit really hard by an Aura Sphere, but gets off a really strong Surf in retaliation that does just above half. I then decide I have to risk a crit here and go through a second Surf, only for Cynthia to hard switch into Roserade. I really don't understand why she did that, because it's kind of to my benefit. I can now safely get Rotten back in, tank an Energy Ball that does so much more than I would have liked it to, and then get off an Ice Punch that one-shots the Roserade. Cynthia then brings Lucario back in, and I have no choice but to send another Pokemon to the Meat Grinder. So I send Gaping back out, knowing that he won't survive 2 attacks, but knowing another sacrifice is kind of necessary. On the switch, I get hit with a hard Extreme Speed, and then on the next turn get hit by a second hard Extreme Speed. Rest in peace Gaping, you won't be forgotten. I then switch into Cinder, planning to lock Lucario into Stone Edge so Sinnoh can finish it off. Luckily Stone Edge actually misses, meaning I can lock Lucario into Stone Edge without taking any damage. This means I can freely bring Sinnoh out and finish off Lucario with a single Discharge. Of course Lucario crits on the switch, but at least he goes down the following turn. Fifth is Togekiss, and my Togekiss is on full health, so I'm confident I can tank anything this thing throws at me and put it to sleep with Yawn. I'm able to set up Wish and put Togekiss to sleep without too much of an issue, meaning I can switch into Rotten, who gets healed on the switch and then KOs with 3 Ice Punches as Togekiss stays asleep. Cynthia's down to her last Pokemon, Nilotic. Unfortunately to win this run I do have to sacrifice one more Pokemon, so I go through a Night Slash that does less than half before Rotten goes down to a Surf. Or somehow, against all odds, Rotten will manage to survive on 8 HP. You've got to be kidding. Rotten is such an MVP, it's mad. Unfortunately though, a second Surf does finish off Rotten. Rest in peace, you are clearly the MVP of this champion fight. With Rotten down, I bring in Sinnoh, who very nearly gets taken down by a Surf, but luckily survives, meaning we're able to finish off the Milotic with a Discharge for the victory. That was incredibly close, and I'm actually surprised we pulled off a win at the end there, but somehow we managed it. Overall, the run wasn't as hard as I thought it would be until the end. The -5 level cap was helped a lot by EV training, and the limited Pokemon wasn't a huge issue because a lot of the team leaders' teams only had one good Pokemon anyway, and Platinum gives you a lot of really good encounters. Overall though, it was a really fun run, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I did playing it. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, it really does mean a lot. Remember to like if you enjoyed and subscribe for more runs in the future. Thanks again for watching, bye bye for now.